and then I'm going to kick the meeting off officially, and we will start rolling.
We are going to operate just as a normal board workshop though. So informal. If you have questions, certainly interrupt, raise your hand or ask questions as we go, and pretend we're all in the square in the training room.
Kind of like this big, having it on the computer, I can read it. I'm blind now.
Okay, it is now 6 o'clock on the 16th of April. I call this meeting of Santa Fe Independent School District order. The records show that a quorum of board members is present. This meeting has been duly called, and its notice has been posted in accordance with the Texas Open Meeting Act, Texas Government Code Chapter 551. The purpose of this tonight is a budget workshop. The next agenda item was public comment on agenda items, and we had no one sign up for public comment on the agenda items for tonight, so we will move on directly to our budget workshop. And
okay.
who's first up?
All right, I will get started. Okay. Can y'all see that?
Yes, sir.
Okay. So I've got a little PowerPoint presentation here for everybody to go through future residential developments. Now, y'all may have gotten a few versions of this in the last couple of days. Unfortunately, with the economic changes that have been happening, this has been somewhat of a fluid document. We'll kind of hit that. So first slide here is the outline of our district in the brown. That is a footprint of our district in relation to other school districts. You'll see Hitchcock, Dickinson, Lamarck, and it does still show Lamarck in Texas City, but that's all one. This is a drawing of future school residential developments. As you see here, you can see we have quite a few. This is also current developments. Orchard Estates, Orchard Country Estates is current. Bluebonnet subdivision, Pecan Trails is current. So those are currently going. Tower Road Estates is also current.
That 517 right there in the middle, Bob?
Yes, sir. Yes, sir. So 517 is right here. Highway 6 down here. And then this right here is 646. And then this is 1764.
So that, I'm good. Never mind. Go ahead.
Okay. All right. So the first one we'll talk about, Orchard Country Estates. This is a 50 or so acre piece of property. We did look at this when we were looking at schools or 1 acre tracts. They've been under development. There's probably 10, 15 houses already there. I've got a stat sheet we can go over at the end of this slide. This is more give you an idea where these are. Second slide is Pecan Trails on the far left. That one's under construction. It's probably 35–40% built. It's 30 homes. Bluebonnet subdivision right above is a proposed subdivision of about 30 something homes right on Avenue S. It will have a feeder. It will have an exit on the 1764. And then over here, the Novelli Tracks. This is about 150 homes on 50 acres. This one is probably the least put together. They have a special funding they want to do with the city, and I don't know that that'll fly or not. But that is those three.
Did it actually sell?
No, it's still pending sale. They're still pending some of the developmental stuff. So like I said, some of this is, we were invited to a city meeting to kind of go over the zoning and planning for that one. We've been invited to all these. This one I tried to attend, it conflicted with another meeting I had. But they want to do a what they call a public improvement district to finance all the improvements, the streets, roads, sewer, utilities. In the city, I don't know if they're on board with that, but that's how they want to finance it. But they have a master plan already to go, but it has not gone to the city for approval. Bluebonnet subdivision, I want to say has been to zoning and planning and is pending a city permit. Contrails obviously is already under construction.
Has there been any talk if there's these folks are gonna see some residual fallout with all the revenue loss with everything else with this virus?
Yeah, so one of the main subdivisions we were really going to talk about, I got word today from the guy that was doing it that they've already shut the door on it. It was a 800 home and 200 apartment complex development on 517 in Western League City. And I actually took it off the map, and that was one of the latest updates y'all had. So that one was a casualty already. I talked to City of League City today about that, and they got word that it got shut down about 2 weeks ago. Now there's a northern piece to it that's not in our school district that is moving forward, and we'll go over that here in a minute. This is down here at the bottom is Tower Road Estates. This is already, the infrastructure's all in. There's one house there. They have section 1 or phase 1 for sale. They've got about half the lots that look like sold. So we expect that to grow. I have it estimated 150 homes right now. And then right above that is called Tres Rios. Now, Tres Rios is just over 1,000 acres. They're projecting 2,100 to 2,400 homes in the subdivision. I've asked them to reserve us 2 school sites at least, and maybe a third, an elementary and a junior high, or maybe 2 elementaries and a junior high. It will have access to 517. I did talk to them. They're still moving forward, but they're doing due diligence right now. Their original plan was to have houses started in a year and a half, but that time frame may shift. The developer of this actually does own this property at this time, so that means there's a higher likelihood that it will continue. But the economy is going to drive this one. But this one would be a big impact to our school district. And they have about a 10 to 12 year build out is what he estimated, with 150 plus homes per year. Wrong way. This is the traffic plan that the city of Santa Fe asked them to put together for Tres Rios. So as you see, they proposed 2nd Street coming across. Now, Tres Rios will only be responsible for building what's inside the yellow property line. They wouldn't have to build anything outside of their property line. And then they would propose Western Bay Area Boulevard coming down and going through Tres Rios. And then that may eventually extend all the way to 6. And then another feeder, which I think would tie into the Landing Boulevard on the east side, 2nd Street, and then 4th Street possibly coming across. 4th Street for the city of Santa Fe was a little bit of a stretch to get all the way to 646, but 2nd Street looked like it had a natural right of way. This is the Duncan track. This is Western League City. This Duncan track, I talked to the city today. There is a piece that is moving forward called Pedregal. It is going to be by the guy that manufactures homes, Cervell Homes. He has actually plans submitted and is pending approval. He is still moving forward with that, but it's a very small pieces in our district of that development. And that's only the southeastern corner of this development. The rest of the development is still in the planning phase. And so they don't have a developer that's presented anything to the city for hard plans yet. So I don't have a time frame that the housing sections that would come into us is about 174 lots on this development. That'd probably be about 5 years out, 4 or 5. If I'll show you another slide here in a second. So when I first started this, right next to where it says possible 2,000 acre development, there was a development there called Westland Ranch. So the northern part of Westland Ranch, which is right in this area here, it's still going on. The part that was in Santa Fe ISD is not. And it was funny because in February 18th, I had an email from him wondering if we're still wanting to move forward with buying the school property that he proposed to you guys. And then 2 weeks ago, they decided to walk away from the project. So, I guess that they determined it wasn't viable at that time. So here's some data. This kind of gives the numbers. Orchard County Estates has got 20 homes on it. It's about 60% complete. The Pecan Trails got 25 homes, about 40%. Tower Road Estates is 160 homes, about 5% complete. Trace Rios, I plugged in 2,250 homes, which was kind of in the middle of where their numbers were. 156 homes for the Novelli property and 36 for Bluebonnet subdivision, for a total of 4,529. The future development, the Duncan tract probably has 1,100 homes in there. There's also some other homes. So the Duncan tract's made up, there's a Duncan tract, and then next to that's a Lloyd tract. And I've got a map following this that shows that, and then there's a McAllister tract. The Duncan tract is the one we looked at a minute ago, and that one's moving forward with development. The McAllister tract is where Westland Ranch is going to be, and that's where the development was coming from in our school district for about 1,000 homes that went away. Those two are going to move. The Lloyd tract is not having much movement, but it could have movement. But understand these PUDs were put together in 2006, and we still haven't seen any homes built on them. So the reason they died after 2006 was because the economy turned down, and in the last 2 or 3 years, they've had some movement. So I think, also running through these 3 tracks is the Grand Parkway. When I put this together, there was 2008, there was an engineer that was looking at 2,000 acres west of the McAllister tract, where Westland Ranch was, to put together a big development. That one's never been on our radar. It's not part of the PUD, and it is 100% our school district. I don't know if that's moving forward or not. It was a word I got from Matthew Wells with Westland Development, and I haven't heard any more about it. He was going to have the guy reach out to us if it moved forward, but I did put that in there just as a number. And then Acadia Station is a development that looked like it was going to go about 3 years ago. Back when we talked about this in 2015, they talked like it would start in 2018, and it has not moved. And so we didn't cover a lot of it because I haven't heard any more about it. But that is another development. We actually own 15 acres inside Acadia Station, right along Cemetery Road for a new school site. So if that were to go, we would actually have a site there as well. So student projections, I estimate by 2026, if all these neighborhoods up here go with an aggressive growth of additional almost 2,100 students. And then in 2030, 10-year projection of almost 6,100 students. But that's also assuming that a percentage, about 30-40% of Acadia Station takes off, and 30 or 40% of that 2,000 acre development takes off. A conservative growth would be about 1,326 homes by 2026. Additional students. And then by 2030, 3,771 additional students. Our current enrollment is 4,500, give or take. So that would push us with an aggressive calculation to 6,596 students, or a conservative calculation of 5826. So, we're looking at some growth of anywhere from 1,800 to 2,800. I'm sorry, 1,300 to 2,300 students in the next 4 years. That's and a lot of that is going to rest on Trace Rios development. Not necessarily the other ones. They're somewhat inconsequential, but it could explode real fast. And in 2030, projected enrollment could be as high as 10,600 or as low as 8,200. So this is that Western League City PUD that was done several years ago. I'm going to zoom in here. I lost my zoom button. There it is. So you see this triangle right here? This triangle here, and it goes up this way some. That triangle is what we should see homes out of in the next 5 years. And this section down here, which is in our school district right now, is labeled Section 3. And I just got that data from League City this afternoon. The Westland Ranch development was right here. And this is a piece that they walked away from. But up here to the north is still under construction and still moving forward. That is still moving forward with the city of League City. So I think my thought is once this starts to go, this gets built or starts to get built. And if the Grand Parkway comes in 5 years, this middle piece, which is the Lloyd track, would really explode. And that's where we have a whole lot of homes. So, the numbers I give you now for 10 years out are very subjective, but they could be low or they could be really low or they could be high. It's going to depend on the economy and things like that. But as you can see, there's a lot of opportunity for development. And then the 2,000 acres that the gentleman from Wells Development was talking about, we're west of here, which is off this map, and that's not been on our radar. So this is just remind everybody, this is a footprint of the Grand Parkway and how it's going to come off of 45 and connect to 35. And talking to League City, they're talking that they could see something in 4 or 5 years. Is what he told me today. Now, he has not heard any more or any less than I've heard in the last 2 or 3 years, but there's been some talk, and we'll see what the economy drives with that. This is driven by state funding and hurricane evacuation and things like that. And that's my presentation.
So Bob, where does that show in that Grand Parkway coming out on 45? Is that right there? Is that the Star Toyota or the Toyota complex before you get to 518 area?
This is HEB and this is 646.
Oh, okay.
So it comes in. So if you're driving down and right before you get to HEB, there's a giant green space right here.
Mm-hmm.
Corridor for it.
I know what you're talking about now.
Yeah, it's right there next to the Walgreens.
Yes. And, it goes through all those neighborhoods that we looked at. So you can kind of see it kind of goes through. And this yellow line here is our school district. Everything south of that yellow line is Santa Fe ISD. Up here.
It's not going to cross 646 or anything, is it?
It actually becomes the 646 corridor on the east side of 45 and a little bit on the west side of 45 before it curves off. So, So if you look right here, this is 646 here.
Gotcha.
This is Grand Parkway. So it kind of splits right there.
Got it.
Whoop. Sorry. So that, and then if you look up here, this is the whole segment from 288 to 45. So we're looking at that segment. That's the whole segment there. Okay, any questions?
Any other questions for Bob?
No, sir. Thank you.
Okay.
All right.
Thank you,
We'll
Bob.
move on to the budget then. Ms. Townsend, I think you're muted.
Okay, I am muted. Thank you so much. All right, I'm going to do the screen sharing. It says my host disabled participant screen sharing. So can you see my screen?
I cannot.
Not yet.
Not yet?
No, ma'am. No, ma'am.
Okay, so let's try this again. Okay. Now, how's that?
That's it.
Okay. All right, I took a little different approach with this presentation for hopes that after we finish, we can post it so anyone can go back and view it at any time. Basically, what will happen is a few slides will play. My voice will be on there explaining the slides, and then there'll be a question slide to pause so I can answer any questions that you have, and then we'll move on the presentation. So you'll see a few slides, we'll pause, you'll see a few more, and it's a voiceover to keep it going, and then I don't have to fumble over my words. So hopefully this will go smoothly. Okay, so let's get started. Okay. All right, this is the budget workshop for April 2020.
Good evening. This is Lee Townsend, and we would like to start off this budget workshop with a review on the information covered on March the 3rd, 2020 budget workshop. On page 1, the first document is a review of the general fund balance. General fund is also called maintenance and operation because the revenue covers expenditures of normal operations, such as personnel, benefits, instructional contracted services, supplies, property insurance, auto insurance, plus a whole lot more. The far left column is the general fund tax rate over the years. Notice it has not changed much. In 2019-2020, the state compressed the $1.04 tax rate to 0.97 cents. For the 2020-2021 school year, the Board of Trustees has the option to include one additional golden penny during the tax adoption process. 0.967 cents includes the mandatory state compression and the additional golden penny, bringing the 2020-2021 tax rate to 0.967 cents. We will need to use a portion of the 2018-19 ADA adjustment to create a balanced budget for 2021. If every employee is paid his or her contract, and every budget manager spends his or her entire allotment, then we would need approximately $1,200,000 to create a balanced budget. At the end of 2021, the amount needed to balance the budget will probably be closer to $800,000. We have some pending items that we also need to discuss. We need to settle up with the bond expenditures. We'll need to pay the vendors by May 2020. We're estimating that cost to be about $1 million. We've anticipated that settle up, and it's on the general fund balance worksheet. We have 10 buses that have been approved through a TCEQ grant. The grant covers approximately 60% of the cost of each bus. We need to order those buses no later than December 2020. The estimate for that order is approximately $432,000. We need to look at our technology refresh plan for the fall of 2020. We have some high school and junior high math and science student laptops that need to be refreshed, and also some teacher computers. As we look at the different options that are being presented, it's going to roughly be about $156,000. The following assumptions have been made while preparing the 2021 budget. The 2021 budget has a 3% midpoint increase of salaries for all staff employees. The additional golden penny, 5 total, is included in the tax rate calculation for 2020-2021. 1.2 million is the estimate needed to balance the 2021 budget using the 1819 ADA adjustment, but we predict the number to be closer to 800,000. Using a conservative approach, 682,000 can be held back until September 2020, when actual enrollment numbers can be compared to projected enrollment numbers. If in the worst case scenario, an adjustment can be made to the budget by not adding the 20% reduction of the department campus budget. Increasing tax base by year 3 in 2022-2023, we expect there to be more homes and businesses in the area. Open enrollment of 100 students would increase revenue by about 800,000 to 1 million more in revenue. So what are some of the concerns we're facing? Well, of course, we're always concerned about the enrollment on the first day of school because that pretty much indicates what's going to happen for the rest of the year. So we watch that very closely. Our ADA for 2021, will it be at 95% is what we budget at. Are there any COVID-19 expenditures out there that we'll need to cover that aren't covered by any federal grants? And that could be remediation this summer or remediation next year for those students who really need a little bit more help from the lost time that we had this past spring. Also, there's concerns about the state's ability to sustain promises they've made with House Bill 3, such as the teacher incentive allotment or advanced placement incentives. For the most part, we feel like the state will continue to provide the current level of funding for our WADA. The state economy is another thing that we have to take into consideration. What are the short-term impacts for COVID-19? What is the unemployment, loss of tax revenue for the state, price of the resources, West Texas Intermediate Crude, what do the sales tax looks like for the state? And then what are the long-term impacts with House Bill 3? Will some of the identified programs revenue be reduced? So those are the concerns that we're looking at as we're monitoring the data that's coming in and how it might impact the budget.
Okay, so this is where we pause and see if there's any questions that I can help you with.
Any questions up to this point for Ms. Townsend?
Okay, then okay.
So as we continue looking at the information, we're now looking at the transition plan from 2019-20 to 2020-21. Basically, we are holding the enrollment at 4,200, the same, ADA about 95%, which is the same. We are recommending using indirect cost from the federal grants and a portion from the 1819 ADA adjustment. If 100% of all personnel budget and 100% of all department campus budgets are spent, we would need around $1,200,000 to have a balanced budget. We expect the estimate to be closer to $800,000. So let's take a look at the general fund revenue. This is page 3 of your documentation. As you look at this chart, it shows the revenue from 2014-15 through 2020-21. The taxable property value is listed at the top with the corresponding tax rate listed immediately below. As we move down the spreadsheet, the first row of data labeled 5711 is the current taxes collected for the year. Moving across the spreadsheet to the column labeled 2019-20, you will see the state mandated tax compression. Note the tax collections did not decrease, but remain steady, and it looks as if we're going to exceed our budgeted collections for 2019-20. Keep in mind, the Comptroller's Office said our 2019 property values were invalid or too low. So this should lead us to believe the property values will be higher in 2021 school year. And with the additional golden penny, we should collect more than we did in 2019-20. We've taken a very conservative approach with revenue. Our state revenue, row 5811, state available funds, and row 5812, foundation school program, are almost identical to 2019-20. Basically, we're using our indirect cost from our federal programs, and it's covering a portion of the new instructional facility allotment we received for 1 year only in 2019-20.
Okay, and if we have any questions on revenue?
Questions?
Those line items, which one of them show the loss of revenue based off these, when kids are absent? I mean, how does that affect our budget so bad?
So that's a very good question. Basically, and I'm looking here so I can reference it correctly. I'm looking at the documents on page 3, which was the last slide that we showed. When you take the local tax and you take the state available, the 3 that we were pointing to earlier, you add those together to get your total revenue. And basically that's calculated off of your students. So if your students miss, that whole total number comes down. So we try to capture it at where we think the attendance will be and where we think the enrollment will be. So basically, if our ADA, our attendance fell to 94%, then those numbers would also fall.
So put a dollar to it as far as go back to 2018. So you actually had, a true number to go by, how many absentees we had and what it actually cost the district?
So it was right at 94.7%. 94.7. We budgeted at 95, so it was pretty close. It was probably a difference of about 250,000. I tried to make those adjustments as we move through time to keep it roughly in the same area, 94.7, 95, and try to keep them close together. So I do have it as what we think it will be. It's not at 96. There's no way that we've made 96, so we wouldn't put it up that high. So we've generally tried to stay in that area. I don't have it as low as 94.5. Hopefully that we won't go back to that area. We'll keep it up.
The reason I ask is so we can, since we're doing this live and there are some families out there watching, they can see how important it is to make sure their child is at school. I mean, it's not just something we talk about. They're actually getting to see the numbers that you deal with on a daily basis.
Right. It definitely has to do with the number of students in the seat every day and how they calculate it off of the enrollment. So you definitely want to get your kids to come to school and have them there so you can instruct them and teach them, and your funding is based on that.
So the more your kids at school, the more we can provide for them.
That's correct. That is exactly right.
And that may be putting the cart before the horse, Mrs. Townsend, but I know earlier when I was preparing for tonight, there was other slides showing when you add up to 100 students, what that basically generates in revenue. Is that still forthcoming in your presentation?
Yes.
Okay, then I'll let my questions be a little bit later.
Okay, so is it okay if I continue?
Yes, ma'am. Thank you.
This next slide is page 5 of your documentation, and it's a history of personnel expenditures. It is the largest part of our budget. This spreadsheet shows the changes over the years from right to left. The proposed personnel cost for 2020-2021 equal $35,719,387. So let's add the personnel expenditures in with the campus department and expenditures and see the entire expenditures for the budget year. So page 6 of your documentation is the history of all expenditures. We have personnel expenditures, campus allotments based on enrollment, operations or department budgets based on prior history, and utilities. Over the years, we have transitioned expenditures to program budgeting and will continue this process for the next several years, moving away from a budget manager approach to a program approach. We're working with the same budget, just slicing and dicing it a little differently to align with services and programs offered. $634,189 is the 20% we can retain to make sure enrollment in ADA are as we expect it to be when school starts in August 2020.
Okay, do we have any questions on those items?
Can you go back one slide for me, please?
I will certainly try. I may have to start it over, but I will try.
So, and if I missed this, I apologize to everybody on this call and everybody watching. So on the first line item that says salaries, we're potentially proposing that we increase salaries, just rounding numbers, $1.2 million.
Yes.
And so I'm assuming that we're going to be expanding our staff and at each campus. Why is that a 1.2 million?
It's the 3%. It's the 3% of the midpoint raises.
Okay, I can buy that. Thank you.
So is that the amount that it shows that we're going to be over budget, the 1.2?
It's actually a combination of the budget as a whole, but those numbers are close to the same. And we can go back to the previous spreadsheet when we took the revenues and the expenditures and we showed how we started from this year and we're moving into next year. So that's part of it.
So every year have they always had raises, or has there ever been years where the salaries just stayed?
I have been here since 2015, and each year we have asked for have put in the budget a 3% on the midpoint.
Gotcha.
Prior to that, we did have some years that we were not able to give raises, but maybe only one. And maybe 2010-ish. It's been a while.
Thank you, Mrs. Townsend. Thank you, Dr. Wall.
Okay, are we good to move on? Okay.
Page 7 of your documentation is the capital project options. This is the information we reviewed last budget workshop regarding capital expenditures needed in the near future. We are in need of technology refresh as well as other facility items that have been on the capital needs list for some time. We were asked at the last budget workshop, what kind of impact would a tax rate increase have on property values and the amount of taxes paid? So based on page 8 is an illustration of the appraisal value less the homestead exemption, the total taxable value. So looking at the first example, the total taxable value would be $100,000. If there was a 1 cent tax increase, that would basically increase what is paid on taxes by $10. If there was an 8 cent tax increase on that same value of a home, you would pay $80 more per year. If it was a 10 cent increase, that same home value would pay $100 more a year. If the appraisal value, taxable value was $200,000, a 1 cent increase would be $20 more a year. An 8 cent increase would be $160, and a 10 cent increase would be $200. If the home's taxable value was $300,000, a 1 cent increase would be $30 a year. An 8 cent increase would be $240 a year, and a 10 cent increase would be $300 a year. And the last bit of information we need to review is in your documentation on page 9 It is the results of the November 5th, 2019 elections across the state of Texas, and it will show you what school districts had bond issues out there and how many passed and the dollar amounts. The timelines for the budget process is M&O tax rate adoption is June 16th, 2020. The budget adoption is June 16th, 2020. And the deadline to call a November 2nd, 2020 election is August the 17th, 2020.
And so are there other questions that I can answer for you? And Mr. Davenport, you asked me about the slide with the amount. Let me see if I can find that. I thought we had talked about that previously, but I may have been mistaken.
That's okay.
Let me see. I thought I had it here on this assumption slide at the bottom.
So I'll make if you don't mind, and I appreciate you going to that because I hope everybody watching sees, I think what Clay was highlighting as well about having people in the seats, students. So open enrollment of 100 students would increase revenue to the district by about $800 to $1 million. I just read that out loud so that everybody at home can see where we're looking at there. Also, I want to make one comment on page 8 of your illustration there, where if we raise the value of the tax rate by 1 penny, there is a column that I want everybody to kind of look at, and it's the taxable value columns. It's the third one from the left. And Mrs. Townsend, is it correct to make sure that that is set by Galveston County Appraisal District, correct?
The taxable value, the appraisal value is set by Galveston Central Appraisal District. Yes, sir.
Okay. So that's another thing I just want to highlight for those watching at home. That is not set by the district. Even though we may raise a tax rate by 1 penny, it actually, in your illustration, $100,000 value be increased by $10. But yet, if the county decided to raise home values, that obviously would go up because of our tax rate as well.
Yes, sir.
Thank you so much.
Okay, and oops, sorry. Are there other questions that I can help answer or clarify?
Any other questions for Ms. Townsend?
No, sir, I do not.
Okay.
There was a document on the handout that was attached to the board with a operations COVID-19 update that I want to go over quickly. Some wonderful things have been happening across the district. But what we're seeing is just a whole lot of people pitching in and doing everything they can, especially with the child nutrition, the transportation, and their partnership to feed the children of Santa Fe. Just a whole lot of good things happening. We've had a lot of curbside pickup for a couple of weeks, and then we started the home delivery. We're now in week 3. But on your, and it's page 13, when I added up the numbers of all the meals that were served between the curbside and the home delivery, I added up over 26,000 meals that were fed, which is just amazing that that amount of food has gone out to help the community. Hats off to Cherie and Mark and all their efforts. But there's an outline of all the numbers and all the counts on nutrition services. And not only are they doing that, they're fielding questions as well as making those orders. And that's a large amount of food to process. Cherie is having struggles with having some food that's not available, making sure it's ready, packaged, and appropriate. It's a whole different setting than what you would find in a regular cafe lunch line, but she's doing a great job with that. And we certainly appreciate all their help and answering all the questions and being available. Transportation has been working to get all the routing information in for all the students who would like the services. They're delivering over 1,000 different combinations of breakfast and lunch to the kids. They've broken it up into zones. They make runs within 45 minutes to make sure that the food stays at the right temperature. They're distributing and working on their safety protocol. They're having safety training, and then all the other duties that they're doing besides that. The technology department has just been lighting it fire. They've just been going at it. They've gotten over 1,000 computers ready to go home with the students. They're handing out technology. They're integrating Canvas with Zoom, setting up Zoom as an enterprise, doing our wonderful board meetings, keeping that running, making sure that everyone has access and can use the VPN with remote clients, helping with extending phone services, acquiring hotspots, and moving software to the clouds. The custodian and maintenance department, the very first item, daily disinfecting every school and facility. My goodness, they've got their hands full. They're keeping everything clean, and wiped down and wiped again and restrooms and everything that gets touched. They continue to keep it in great shape. They're maintaining the grounds. They're still delivering the mail, which is very important to us, especially at Cowan, as well as everyone else. UPS is still making deliveries. They're working on work orders. FEMA roof repair at the high school is ongoing, and the floor at the special needs room at the high school was also replaced. The business service has been processing payroll, accepting APs, communicating with employees regarding their benefits, processing bids. We have a couple bids out there, processing invoices, submitting SHARS reimbursement to keep that revenue stream going. We're submitting grant reimbursements, processing journals, processing tax payments, returning phone calls, and we're also looking at transitioning with our health benefits. So lots of wonderful things going on with all the different operations of the district. And I believe we'll turn it over to whomever's next.
Yeah, Ms. Townsend, can you hear me?
Yes.
If just on the basis that we don't go back to school, are y'all talking to the contractors about maybe moving forward with some of the upgrades at the high school sooner than later?
And you know, that was the one that I left off, that I have written down on my pad to make sure that I say that Bob is still meeting with the group, the team for the high school renovations, and that is moving forward. He has had a few meetings this week, and they've got the guaranteed price that he'll discuss at the board meeting, but that is definitely moving forward, and he's working really close with them as well.
Good deal.
And I apologize for leaving that off, Bob.
No, it's okay. And we were actually in conversation. I'm in conversation with some of the folks on the turf for the football field about possibly doing that more sooner than later. If we don't go back, we maybe can do that in May and get that taken care of. It's going to kind of depend on what that decision and what the decision with other activities happen with that. We're also going to start some of our summer work this week on or next week on gym finishes and things. And then the high school, the plan was always to start construction around 1st of May, and that's going to be a board agenda item for approval, the guaranteed maximum price on Monday night. So, and then any interior work, if we choose to do that, then we would start that, especially if school were to not reopen, we would jump on that in May as well.
Thank you, Bob.
Big dog. Okay.
Thank you, Ms. Ross.
So
Ms.
now
Ross, are
he's
you going to do the public health and the school district update?
No, I am not going to do the what? Okay, I'm doing the distance learning.
Yes.
Yes, I have that. Okay, sorry. Okay, yes. So for those of you who have school-age children in this group, welcome teachers to your first faculty meeting. So we want to thank you all because those of you who have school-age children, we know that you guys are having to really manage a lot. So we appreciate it. I just want to give you a really quick update. I know that, your time is valuable and, you probably have some teaching time to get in for the rest of this evening and papers to grade. So we wanted to tell everyone, of course, I've talked to some of you, that the landscape of learning is definitely, it's changed for all of us throughout the world. But particularly in Santa Fe ISD, I think I reported to you guys not too long ago. It was a smooth rollout. We did a lot of survey of information prior to in order to prep our teachers and our parents and our students. And with that, we're getting weekly information from the homes as well as to what is going on. How can we perfect the learning experience within the realm of our control in the context in which the kids are being instructed. Just kind of let you guys know what's going on a little bit behind the scenes, as well as knowing that one of the things we are definitely charged with by TEA is instructional continuity. And basically what that means is what it should mean is that we have to do our due diligence to make certain that every single student is being prepared to the best of our possible ability and come back from this with the least amount of gaps. So if you look on the one pager that I provided for you guys today, you can see, which I found kind of interesting, but we have 95 to 97% of active student participation. It is higher than our general daily attendance, which is very odd and obscure. However, we are definitely finding different ways to reach students. I think we've learned quite a bit about ourselves through this as well. I'll be honest, we're speaking now in the language of this generation of students. They're very digitally driven, and we have actually received quite a bit of feedback, including from our teachers, because we have systems that are constantly tracking and monitoring students and parents. We have received quite a bit of feedback, though, that students seem to be more intrigued and more engaged by us jumping into this digital landscape and utilizing our Canvas learning management system and our s'mores. So I don't know if you're on Facebook or not, but if you are, I'm pretty certain you probably have seen some of the pictures that people are putting of their children's experience within our own school district with teachers. And I am impressed to see what the elementary teachers are doing, because how we're having to grade students in pre-K through 2 is called progress monitoring. And that is really, the student has to perform for the teacher in order for the teacher to rate them to see if they're making progress or not. And that's from their ABCs to sight words to, identifying numbers, et cetera. So if you've seen any of that, it has been amazing to see the interaction that has been going on, and the accuracy of the data that we're collecting. Because the one thing I can tell you, and this is the truth, and I'm pulling in all of these different sheets for auditing as well. We have systems on top of systems that it's continuously checking, whether or not we're, really monitoring what the kids are doing. We're really pinpointing what the kids are doing. And the one thing that we are seeing whenever you're looking at time that it's taking for this, it's taken quite a bit of time, but the teachers throughout this are saying that they're really developing a great relationship with the kids in a different way as well, and the home and the family. So just to give you, like I said, some of these overviews, if you can see, I showed you like the systems of the checks and balances and how we're randomly auditing to make certain that our teachers are making that contact. And it's more than just reaching out, it's two-way contact, and two-way contact meaning that could be within the context of the course as well. Administrators are looking at daily logs. They're involved in these planning sessions that go on weekly. Every week we have professional learning sessions online in which teachers are brought together the same way that they were brought together in schools. And they're actually planning, and we're aligning that with, the curriculum where we left off. We have surprisingly, and we're pleased by this, because I just sat in a meeting the other day with our Region 4 assistant superintendents of curriculum. And it seems like we, as far as our paper packet distribution, have a much lower percentage of distribution for that. And I'm thankful that technology was so quick to actually get in there and help us be able to evaluate the situation and get the families the technology they need, because it has most definitely decreased our paper costs, but it's also, to me, a lot more realistic of experience for kids to be able to experience, you know, the interactive experience that they can have digitally. So as you can see, we had about like 915 laptops that was as of Monday that were distributed. As far as the help desk, overall, as of Monday, Kip reported there were 385 total, that's student, parent, and faculty, you know, requests for assistance. And then by federal law, we're still required to hold ARDs and make certain that our special needs students are accommodated and modified in every way that they possibly can. And so we are charged with making certain that the timeliness of our ARDs are still, you know, taking place. And as you can see, we have been really busy with hosting those ARDs virtually as well. So that's just the quick overview of the 3 weeks. We're now finishing week 4. Again, we're collecting more and more data in order to make certain that we're doing our due diligence to instruct every student.
Thank you, Ms. Ross. Anyone have any questions for Kim?
I actually do. Kim mentioned something, so it might be a dual answer from you, Kim, as well as Mrs. Townsend, since we just came off the budget discussions. You mentioned about the paper packets and a reduction of from other schools and different things. We seem to be having a good success with everybody doing the virtual learning. You know, obviously that's a savings to the district. Where are those types of savings currently going? And, you know, are they just going back into the general fund? What are we doing with those right now, knowing that we're only a month into this? You know, we might have to use them at a later date.
Well, I would like to just say, I'm not for certain, you know, Eric, whether it's a savings or not, because I don't know what we anticipated to print for the rest of the year. I'm just saying in general, as far as our surrounding, you know, colleagues and districts, we have far less to print than they do. But I don't know per se if I could tell you whether it was savings or not, because I don't know what was generated to be future distribution of any kind of paper, you know, lessons in the classes. So I don't really know how that actually averaged out, but
right.
And
Townsend
can help.
I guess my main thing I'm thinking through this, just looking at past, you know, data from the accounts payables and everything else that we get in board book, you know, I'm assuming there's a huge savings at the elementary school level, you know, with paper and everything else. Is that a wrong assumption or?
Well, paper is very expensive right now.
Exactly.
So we hope to see a savings there, yes,
Awesome.
providing that we continue to go on this pattern. So there are some offsets that we're still researching and looking at where it will all end up. So basically with the governmental accounting, you have your revenues and your expenditures, and then you put them together and then it washes into your fund balance. So what happens if there is extra? We get a positive fund balance. So
Perfect. Thank you.
It's a great point though, Mr. Davenport, because when you look at the impact of this change, we'll have, as Lee said, we'll have offsets with spending money on additional technology, for example.
Absolutely.
And the elementary schools actually have a few more packets than the secondary schools, but still I would assume less. We looked at the sub budget the other day and it's much less monthly. So I think we will see some impacts overall on this budget that will be positive, which will be helpful for us too. So I do think that's an interesting observation and something that it will, once this year is over, and I say budget year, then we'll have a chance to kind of really look at that and see what that financial impact was.
Yeah,
Hopefully
because,
it will be positive.
yeah, because when I was, you know, one of my previous employers, one of my largest ever expenses was paper, you know, And I know that can get extremely expensive.
Are
So-
we looking to possibly next year, once we're back to quote normal, incorporating some of the stuff that we're doing now into our future plans? Because I see tons of students that absolutely love this. I know it's not for all of them, but I mean, are we kind of thinking about future curriculum ideas maybe to tie into what we're doing now?
I think it's an excellent comment and excellent opportunity for us to really look at the things that work and maximize it for all students. So I do know that we also are looking at adjusting summer school to accommodate for that, regardless of whether we're back in or not, for the remainder of this year, to adjust summer school to maximize the things that work best for all kids. So that's one of, maybe if we looked at the bright sides of having to completely shift, and our district, I believe, has done a really good job of pulling it together and putting out the information in a lot of different ways for kids. And so I have to say kudos to Kim and the whole team, principals, the curriculum guys, the technology guys, because I do believe we've done a super job of that. And I also think, Mr. Grasmuck, it is a great opportunity for us to really look at that and see how we can integrate it into what we're doing, and look at maybe changing some of the strategies and ways that we reach kids that we have not done before, because now we have new skills. What we've seen is we've all had to learn new skills, and where you would look at this, we didn't necessarily know how to do. We may use this type of meeting setting for ourselves in different ways in the future too. So great ways to reflect and think, how can we make it better all the way around going forward, and take the lessons we've learned and build on them. So great observation as well.
Hey, Kim, one other thing I got. How is the Indian Success Academy and those students over there? Do we have any data feedback on them, or are they part of this, the general?
They're part of all the general, the information. We're actually keeping tabs on them the very same way. But also the Indian Success Academy, they have operated, remotely anyway. They use distance and in person, obviously, learning, but a lot of that is housed in our Edgenuity that we have. That's, the aligned curriculum to set up for their flexible school days and pacing. But yes, we are definitely keeping tabs on them as well. They're all part of the statistical data that we've been collecting in the survey data. And then also to piggyback off, Dr. Wall, just to let you guys know, absolutely. I'm in a lot of professional learning in different cohorts, to where everyone is making this great awakening of knowing that, this type of learning has seemed to make a tremendous impact, period, on kids. And although a lot of what you see is what we've had embedded in our district, but now we have streamlined it, and now everyone is basically trial by fire getting acquainted with this. And so even with this, if you were to hear the conversation in our professional learning communities, that the teachers are in, and when they're actually, now they're not just looking at the learning in terms of a singular, like I'm looking at my curriculum, they're looking at curriculum and seeing what that looks like alive in a platform such as this. Like, how can I get kids to engage when I really can't walk up to their desk and see what they're doing? So whenever you go into some of those meetings, which we pop in and out all the time, which is kind of nice when it's online and there's like maybe 3 or 4 meetings at once, but you can pop into those meetings and you actually see teachers now teaching other teachers, those components of technology that they did not think they were capable of doing, and they have surprised themselves. So it's funny because you'll hear some of the conversations that the teachers are like, I couldn't go to sleep last night. I saw that there is this particular aspect of Canvas, and I stayed up until I figured it out, and I'm incorporating that in my class tomorrow. So absolutely. We're already archiving a lot of these lessons, and we have shells of courses. And with that, we're actually doing trainer of trainers for that. And I met with my team today for us to start talking about utilizing these and cataloging them to just continue to build off of, so that we have constant like exemplar and model lessons and framework that we can use in a variety of different ways, be it with kids or adult training, et cetera.
Awesome.
And just one more kind of final thought on that is what we're also looking forward to is comparing data. So when we can assess and look to see the growth and use our, we obviously don't have a state assessment, but we have measures comparable that will give us indications of growth. And our hope, of course, is that we're moving kids forward, and this, there are not gaps that you would expect. So that's what we're looking forward to seeing as the next couple of weeks come up, when we can look at assessments and data and really see where they are. So.
Also, are they going to check and see how some feedback from the families is what they actually liked about it? I know personally, we have a son that's 504, and he does every subject a day instead of spending. So he gets to focus on that one subject and actually learning it versus just cramming in 45 minutes where he might not get it until day 3. And then it's too late because now he's playing catch up all weekend and gets to work at his own schedule, kind of sets his own time and so forth. And there's a lot of, I guess, wasted time walking from class to class. It's taken out their day. So what takes them a normal day, they can knock it out at home 2 or 3 hours earlier.
Right. Right. So yeah, we're actually collecting that data in the parent surveys and trying to get feedback. And then what will happen if we have to transition back, or as we're going to, if we don't, if this is prolonged, we're going to send like more personalized surveys to the families, but the students as well, especially like our secondary students who can really speak for that, to kind of talk about the personalized learning. Because quite frankly, I mean, and I know that, your wife teaches that, as well. And, she's an elementary teacher, so they're used to that personalized learning all the time. Well, that's one of the things that, has been a huge goal, for every school, but for, our school in particular, is to really have more personalized instruction at a secondary level, especially for those students where, maybe the day-to-day just doesn't work per se for them. So we're gonna collect a lot of data based on this, and I just think it's going to give us a really good image of what we can develop for tomorrow. And we've had these conversations where we're like, okay, this is the moment now. If we're going to really try to change a traditional landscape of education, this is the moment now that we can actually do it, because we have the real data, not just the abstraction of, oh, that's a great idea. Yeah. I mean, but that's the truth. So with that, now that we're collecting that, and even the fact that we even had parents, I mean, at the very beginning, we had a lot of reluctancy from parents. Matter of fact, when we started the distribution of the laptops, parents were like, okay, I'm going to pick this up, but how am I going to be able to teach my kid this? And we just said, look, trust in the process, and we're gonna be right there to walk you through it. But our teachers are going to be teaching the students, but the students, have an area in which they can probably teach you as well. And so probably the first week of the surveys that came back with a lot of anxiety, and now you have a lot of folks that are like, I was so surprised. My kid totally showed me how to do it, and my child took me to this particular website that was able to explain to me the type of math or the type of science that they're doing. So I just think there's so many things that we've pushed a little bit of the boundaries on now, that where people weren't necessarily comfortable, that now they might not necessarily feel so uncomfortable. So if we were to say, let's just say this extends and summer school comes about. Okay, well then how can we create that in the context of what we're doing now, and then maybe incentivize it a little bit so that we have students that are constantly interacting in this format. And then when they come back, hopefully we don't have gaps. Hopefully we might see some acceleration in that. So that's our hopes and our thoughts on it.
Well, great job.
Ms. Hanser, did you have an update for us? You're muted. There you go.
I finally got that done. Okay, I do. I wanted to just share with y'all from a human resources, public relations and education foundation, what we've been doing, working quite differently and remotely. But we are still actively posting jobs. We're onboarding employees and onboarding them remotely. And also we, due to the economy, and I'm sure many of you don't know that we are responsible for this task, but due to the economy, we have many of our employees who are taking advantage of the low interest rates. And so we've been processing a great many verifications of employments for home loans. And also we've been delivering employee appreciation gifts to our employees that using social distancing, of course, but we've put that on the website. We don't want them to feel like that they have been forgotten. So as proclamations are approved and employees of the month, we're still reaching out to them to let them know that we do appreciate everything that they're doing out there. We have been working on staffing and what that looks like for 2020, 2021. As far as also working with Ms. Townsend with the salary budget for next year. So also we've been working on preparations for the end of the year breakfast. Not really sure what that might look like moving forward, but we do want to be able to honor those individuals who have had years of service to the district, our retirees, we also want to make sure that we're also recognizing our employees of the year. So those individuals are all very important. We have been also processing a great many unemployment claims, you know, with people, some of our employees, mainly our substitutes, we've been processing those as well in hopes of helping them through this really difficult time period. As far as public relations, we created the coronavirus page, the COVID-19 page on the website. We've been actively keeping that up to date. I worked very closely with Ashley Tompkins from the Galveston County Health District. She's the PIO, and we exchange press releases and so forth to keep our families and our staff updated on what's going on with this ever-changing pandemic. We've also put a district FAQ out there for parents. We've advertised your board meetings and let people know how they can remote in and be a part. We also have done a lot of video messaging, and we've realized that a good many of our parents want to hear from us. They want to see us. They want to know what's going on in the district. So we've done a lot of little short videos just to let them know, hey, we're here for you, and we're still working for you. We joined TEA with the public health campaign that ended actually on Sunday, this past Sunday, but we did join forces with them to actively remind people of the things that they needed to be practicing so that we can all be back together soon is our hope. And then we did some thank you flyers for parents and staff. And we've also kept up with our staff with trying to keep them motivated and telling them, you know, some self-care things and taking care of themselves and their own personal health. And so trying to just keep the morale up, if you will. And then as far as our foundation group, they've been still communicating with donors, even though that's a difficult task during this period of time. And then they've been working on grants. They're still going to award some of those at the end of the year. And then also they were able to provide bags for Yum Nutrition Services for the food deliveries. So they were able to help out with that too. And then they've just been working with, you know, a lot of our partners and in coordination with being able to help our families out there in the community. And then they've been, Gina's been very actively researching some COVID-19 assistance for nonprofits so that she can continue to help out with the needs that our students and our families are facing right now. But in closing, you know, I just like to end by saying I've never been more proud of our staff as they have all worked tirelessly, you know, to ensure and provide that our students are deserving the educational opportunities that they deserve, and that all our staff has been a part of this COVID-19 digital learning and remote journey that we've all been experiencing. And we just want to continue to thank them for their loyalty, their dedication, and their hard work to the district. And so, and we try to end our emails to the staff with just a reminder that we're all stronger together. So, but that's what we've been doing in the HR, PR, and foundation department.
Thank you very much, ma'am. Okay, Dr. Wall, unless you have something else, I believe that's.
So I just wanted to do maybe a quick summary reminder of budget process and timing. So we've kind of gone over the last couple of months projections that you've had and that we're projecting through next year. So that's this biennium for the money that we would expect based on the numbers that we have from the state. But I would also say, and you all know this is obvious, that we need to be cautious and conservative, I think, in thinking forward, to wait and see what happens economy-wise. I know the comptroller, the Texas comptroller, continues to put out information on that very topic. For example, I think that the state budgeted $50 a barrel for gasoline or crude oil, and it's now at 19. Not that that won't rebound and that those numbers may come back, but I do think that in the big picture of funding, that's something I just think we need to be aware of and diligent and watching carefully. So we have not seen any indication that the money is still not going to be flowing in the revenue that we're expecting that won't happen. I do think that will happen. I think after this biennium, though, that there may be changes, and we want to be prepared for that as well. So just a word of caution in that respect. So something I think that we will continue to keep our eye on and then share with you so that we know when we move forward that we do it carefully and in the best interest financially of the district, so that we continue to be in a strong financial place we are in now and have been since recession in 2008-10 and came out of that very strong as well. So I say that to say we're going to keep you informed with the information, tax values, property values. There's discussion about appraisal districts wanting to roll forward the 19 values. That would not be in the best interest in terms of revenue. So we'll continue to keep you updated on information that we receive on that note. But financially, again, we're strong. Our guys have done a really good job of managing their budgets, and we intend to continue that way. So looking forward at the extra, the things that we need to do. I say extra, but the additional needs that you've seen over the last couple of years. It's in your packet tonight, how we might project those forward. One thing we didn't mention, and I think we'll look at further next time, and we'll look at it in finance, and it'll be in your board packet, is updates on grants. So there's still some of those pending. The state awarded us a grant to continue the instructional continuity, where we were recently awarded from the VOCA, the Victims of Crime Act grant, that we had the ability to not pay the matching funds, which we'll see. That'll be significant for us as well, and not having to create those matching funds for those wellness counselor position. So there's some positives that we will look at as well moving forward. And finally, I will say I continue to be thankful for every single person on this team and our school team, as well as our state and their commitment to education and funding education. Every single employee in this district should also be thankful that that is not a worry for us and for them right now, that we can do our work, and maybe that's to help to motivate people to get behind it and get it done, because it's happening. They're getting behind it and getting it done. But we are appreciative that the funding continues and our work continues and our mission continues to educate kids. So I'll leave it with that. And if there's any questions, we'll be happy to answer them.
Okay, that's all we have for the workshop tonight. A couple of things that I do want to remind, we do have our regular board meeting on Monday night, and we do have an executive session scheduled for 6 o'clock, and I know we have some items that we need to go over in executive session, and then that will start at 6, and then the regular board meeting at 7, and that will again be a virtual meeting just like we did last month. Other than that, we put an executive session on the agenda tonight, Dr. Wall, unless, do you have any personnel things or anything that you
We
need to
do
go over?
not. We do not. We just posted that in the case that we would have a need, but we really don't. So if any of you don't have any need for that, then we will take care of what we need to Monday night in that area.
Okay with it. Does anyone have any questions? First off, do any of the board members, do you have any reason right now that you would like to go into executive session? If not, we will just move. We do have some items for Monday night, and we will have an executive session at 6 o'clock Monday.
No, sir.
Okay. Anybody have any other questions or comments or any communication items that they'd like to throw out there real quick before I ask for a motion to adjourn?
I just want to echo again what I said earlier before we all came live. Great job to everyone there at the school. It's been very impressive to see what y'all have done. Some bragging rights.
I agree. I mean, and I've said this before. It's something I realized, but I never realized until I got on the board. I realized the school had transportation and the school had meals and the school had all these things. But until I got on the board and started looking at every department and all the numbers and all the logistics that goes into that, running 5 or 6 cafeterias, you're running a metro bus system, you're running, when you start breaking down everything that y'all do, it is a tremendous amount of work. And then to overnight say, okay, we're going to do it completely 180 degrees the opposite direction. And to be able to pull that off, I mean, y'all have done a phenomenal job. Everybody has. And it's impressive. So good job, and keep up the good work.
Yeah, you need.
Thank you. And I would only say it only comes from the support from you, because that is a critical piece of it. So we appreciate that as well.
One comment I'd like to make is to the general public watching, as we get those survey monkeys out of the curriculum instruction, please, please, please do not just throw those to the side. We need those filled out. We need the data. The data helps, the entire district do better for each and every one of your households. That is so important, especially in today's times. Make sure you fill that out for whoever's watching, please. And then I guess I got another comment is that I love watching and hearing all the feedback from those surveys and from the group in this room right here. Our average classroom is usually about a 22-to-1 ratio or somewhere in that neighborhood. And the parents are truly finding out how tough it is to manage maybe 1 to 2 to 3, 4 of their own children. And so can you imagine now just one educator in the classroom trying to manage behavior, manage the instructional side, manage all the social side of it, and these are growing individuals that are needing that leadership, that are needing that guidance. So it just goes to show that what the value is in the education professionals that are in the classrooms, that are supporting the classrooms and everything else. It is a lot more than what everybody believes it is, because obviously we're watching social media, we're seeing all the feedback, and truly people are saying, wow, I don't even know how to do this. I'm calling my neighbor, I'm calling other teachers. Like we said, Zoom teachers are going not only from 7 a.m., but they're going, I know a couple of them that are gone to 8, 9, 10 p.m., you know, because they want to provide that education. And most of the general public's, you know, workforce is an 8 to 5. So your educators are not getting paid any overtime for this, but yet they're still doing it because they care about the youth. They care about our students and staff. So hats off to everybody that's making it happen. And thank you, parents, for continuing to build upon your child's education.
Excellent points. Mr. Kelly, do you have anything to add?
I just ditto to everything everybody said. Thank y'all for the hard work, and it's really appreciated. My kids, by the way, they wake up, and the first thing they do when they wake up is get online and do their schoolwork. Never seen nothing like it. So
That's awesome.
thank you.
So you better remember that around Christmas time.
That's true. Mr. Snyder, do you have anything else to add?
No, I just, everything that everybody said. I mean, kudos goes out to the staff and everybody where they're doing it. We can't thank you enough. We're not to be thanked. It's y'all doing all the work. And parents, if you're listening, I appreciate y'all understanding, but we're in a different time now. That's it.
Thank you. Clay, you got anything else?
No, sir.
All right. If no one has anything else, I will entertain a motion to adjourn.
I make a motion to adjourn.
Mr. Snyder made the motion. Who's going to second that?
I'll second it.
Okay. Now, can I see a show of hands of everyone that agrees that we should adjourn?
That's
And
close enough.
that's unanimous. All
Can
right.
you
thank
see the
guys.
hand? Can you see the
Yes.
hand?
And just remember Monday night again at 6.
Thank you.
Thank y'all.
Oh, thank y'all.
Thank you.